Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. I hope you have a very blessed Wednesday. My name is Preacher Moss, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. We have a lot to get through. Sometimes you talk about things that happen in a very, very short cycle. Just so you know, a lot of times when we do the Shout Out Show, we work on a 7 day news cycle. In business, you talk about a weekend news cycle. Well, we just had transformational stuff that happened, blockbuster stuff that happened literally. I don't think we've had a week or 2 weeks like this in the course of modern American politics. Assassination attempt, and then we had an acting president bow out, if you will, of the election. We have a lot to talk about. I've termed this show Election 2024, the prosecutor versus the predator. Brothers and sisters, I want you to understand that some of the things I'm going to say, they might be a little bit out of base, but I'm going to try and make the case for why this election is even more important now. Why we have to be very, very, very particular about how we discern these candidates, because there is a strain, if you will. There's a strain with each candidate. And that strain has to do with the fact that neither one of them are necessarily engaged. Let me explain. When I say engaged meaning that have a particular finger on the pulse of the people that they serve. They're not necessarily at this point in time constituency sensitive, if you will. And I'll explain constituency sensitivities through the course of the show, but I want to make sure everybody understands that this is just a very, very open dialogue. So if you are in what we call Instagram land, IG land, if you're in Facebook land or YouTube land, feel free to post your questions. Feel free if you have something to say. Sister Satana is in the house today, alhamdulillah, so she can handle some of the traffic on IG. And we'll try and answer questions if you have them. But I also say keep them respectful. Keep them respectful, because sometimes, we get a lot out of pocket about things. I may not like Donald Trump. I may not agree with his politics, but I don't hate Donald Trump, okay? It's not in my nature to hate somebody. I don't have a personal relationship. He's never done anything to me personally, okay? Same thing with Sister Kamala Harris. I don't personally dislike these people. It's policies. You have to be able to separate the people from the policies, and that's the thing that we're going to talk about today. Two quick things I wanted to throw out. Save Institute in Atlanta is having a fundraiser August the 7th. Save Institute, they are a charter school for young Black men, dealing with young Black men, rites of passage, some of the issues about community building and character building. They're having a fundraiser on August the 7th. If you're in the Atlanta area, please, please, please attend. This is why this is important. We have this whole era now of charter schools, which a lot of people, they're normal. It's been normalized, if you will. Where I used to go to school for high school was maybe $1,700, $2,000 a year. My same high school, St. John's College High School, is now almost $30,000 a year. You say, what am I talking about, Preach? What are the correlations? It means that education that they're getting at a $30,000 school, they should be getting at Save Institute. And Save Institute has a particular nomenclature for how they're dealing with young Black men. And we're not dealing with schools. We have charter schools for language immersion, French, Spanish, all of that. But do we have anything for Black leadership that is Save Institute? Make sure you're talking to them. The other thing I want to point out is that we're going to be having the Preacher Moss Comedy Festival. Did I say that right, Satana? The Preacher Moss, the third annual Preacher Moss Comedy Festival at ISNA this year. It's going to be in Dallas. Now, we're doing some things differently, so you're going to see some things on the show. Some of our sponsors, I'm going to be highlighting some of our sponsors, number one. Number two is I'm also going to take a bit more of a professional approach to how we do the show. People are watching. So, and then I'm going to ask number three. I'm going to ask really, really hard because this is a transitional period for myself and Sister Satana. You know, we've been doing this show quite a number of years, and we're trying to make the leap um, to another level. And it's not even just like, oh my gosh, we're trying to. It is you grow in your career, you grow in your skill sets, you grow in your vision, and we've been able to do that over the next couple of years, over the last couple of course of years. And what we're trying to do is do that with the show. I didn't really realize where we were until I took all of this equipment here at the ShOUT show, my studio equipment, and started shooting people. And I was like, all praises due to Allah. This is what this was meant to be. Sister Tana and I talked about when we did the first ShOUT show was to my computer, believe it or not. And then, you know, foresight and just being wanting to be creative, not necessarily being creative, just wanted to try different things. We got a hold of StreamYard, and StreamYard opened us up to a whole different level of things, production, doing shows, stuff like that. And we hope to lift the production even higher. That comes with upgrading of equipment, that comes with upgrading of sound equipment, that upgrade. And brothers and sisters, you've heard it here. Hold my feet to the fire. Preacher Mars is actually going to go back to editing school. I hate editing. I do not like editing. I have a degree in journalism. I have a minor in film. I can write. I can produce. I can shoot film. I do not like editing. I've been scarred by what happened back in 1987, 88. The technology wasn't there. They've had Final Cut Pro. They have all these things that make it easier. This is me being an OG with a hard head. I don't like it. I'm not going to do it. I have to change that. So stay on me about changing that. Now, listen, this is the ShOUT show. Today, we're talking about the prosecutor versus the predator. These are the nuances and the realities of election 2024. Don't move. This is one of the shows you definitely want to see on repeat. I'm Preacher Moss. Let's get rolling. We'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our ShOUT show family, our ShOUT show soldiers. They're already in the queue. We want to give a shout out to Sister Ree. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sister Ree, I hope you're doing well. Peace and blessings to you and your family, Brother Derek and Brother Jawad. Always a pleasure. I keep forgetting your young niece's name. Forgive me, but shout out to her too. Next up, a Canadian envoy to the show, Mr. Altaf Rashid, one of our day ones. That's wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My good friend, he is our Canadian quality control guy, making sure the quality of the show is good on this side of the border and that side of the border. Always a pleasure to see you. Big brother Bilal Salahuddin, and by default, his illustrious queen, Sister Sonia, daughter Salahuddin. Big brother, thank you so much for joining us. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Appreciate you as always. Brother Eric Carter, coming from South Kakalaki. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Always good to see you in the house. We have Sister Ika coming from Melbourne, Australia. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings to you and your family. And we got Mama San, better known as Mary Moss, who has joined us. My sunshine on a rainy day, my sunshine on a sunny day. What's going on, Mama San? Always a pleasure to see you. And I want to give a shout out to Maxine BK Esquire, my Aunt Maxine. She's under the weather. Please make the dua for her. We hope that you're feeling better. Okay. And I can't forget, of course, our illustrious executive producer, Sister Satana Whitfield. Without her, the show is much more complicated and doesn't have as much quality and flow. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sister. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Getting to it, election 2024. Do we have people on Instagram, IG? Okay. Okay. All right. A little bit more Brother Yasser, well, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nittany Forever and Mada Shafiq joined. Okay. Easy Optical. Hey, what's up, man? Let's see. Jihad Mullah, what's going on? Sister Satana, I see you for permissible laughter. Brother Omar Regan, one of the funniest cats in the business. What's going on, little bro? Always a pleasure to see you. Mo Ali joined. Bibicar joined. Kaylin Lee Strain, how you doing? And Akahama joined, and Nardifa joined. Look, peace and blessings to all of you. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I wish you blessings and peace of Allah in this life and the next. Thank you so much for joining. And Reed says, feel better, Auntie. Thank you so much. So let me get to how my Sundays go. My Sundays go as such. I usually wake up, inshallah, I wake up about 3:30, 3:45. I get up, I do the Tahajjud, I do some reading, I wait for Fajr to come in, I do Fajr, I go downstairs, I find my gym shoes, I drive to the track. I'm talking to my brother JT because we have a standard call at 6 p.m. on 6 p.m. a.m. on Sundays, Central Time, and we talk about the day's events, and we were talking about politics. And I'm like, yeah, you know, because I have this thing, and I've been very, very honest and open and transparent about my feelings for Joe Biden and his policies, not so much in this administration, but for what he did in the past. You guys know I don't give Trump a pass at any point in time. In fact, I don't give MAGA a pass at any point in time because they don't deserve it. They're not genuine people. To me, they're not authentic. That they have a religious pocket now that supports Donald Trump, goes against everything that religion and contextual understanding of religious text goes against. Like, there's no Bible that's applicable to Trump. And he's not going to look at the Quran. My point, brothers and sisters, is Brother JT and I talk these things through. We talk about things, current events, and we talked about Biden. At this point in time, Joe Biden was still in the race. I pulled this out of my mail. Now, this thing right here is a letter from Joe Biden using my slave name. Sorry, Mom. Using my Christian name, Bryant. Let's finish the job. This thing might be an antique. I'm not even going to open it, but it said, Bryant, let's finish the job. He was still in the race. Sometime later, my phone starts blowing up. I start getting text. Like text. What is going on? And you know, I start worrying about, oh my gosh, I have a cousin. Shout out to cousin Frank. I hope you feel better. May Allah give you shifa. I'm thinking something happened to my cousin Frank because he's trying to recover from a stroke. It was not that. It was that Joe Biden had dropped out of race, number one, and then number two, he had endorsed Kamala Harris, his vice president, to take his place. Woo! This is a game changer. This is why I'm going to speak on it today. This is the case of the prosecutor versus the predator. And I'm going to say something to some of our Muslim constituents who are high and mighty, who are righteous and self-righteous, and somehow that allows you to be disparaging of other people. I'm going to say this. I am, of course, sympathetic to the issues of Gaza. I do not support children dying. I do not support innocent dying. I do not support oppression in any way, shape, or form. But I looked at a Mother's Day greeting from Kamala Harris. And she just said to her mother, she expressed to her mother that she missed her and she loved her. It was on Instagram. And the vitriol that came from those who were pro-Palestinian and I hope your mother's proud that you're a genocidal killer and calling her bees and hoes. And I'm like, come on. Come on. You can't do that. Because that's what we're dealing with right now anyway. And while Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt, again, I don't condone any kind of violence, he's still a violent dude. He still advocates in a way to make everybody understand that if you give him the doorway, if you give him the pathway to deal with his enemies as he sees fit, he's going to do that. If he needs to turn the United States into a banana republic, a third world country, to get his way, he will do that. Here's the problem. You now have to peel the pea from the pod, because we have to begin to look at the people who are out there who think in their minds that this is okay. The thing about Joe Biden, and I'm going to say this, though he bowed out of the race, though he said, I'm going to finish this job, let me say this about Joe Biden. The man had conviction. And to this point, as much as I berated him, he looked around in the situation and he did something a lot of people couldn't do. He said, my position where I am now is not healthy for the country. That I, as president, I can't produce the kind of vision that people are willing to invest in to go another 4 years. In some regards, he said, my age or how I'm being presented is a distraction. The polls don't lie. Joe Biden could have possibly won this election. I never looked at the debate. I'm going to tell you that now. Because I like the forecast. Because you can always look at what happened. But I'd seen Joe Biden in speeches, and let me tell everybody here, Father Time and Mother Nature are undefeated. I don't move like I used to move 10 years ago. If I run on the track now, it's not with this idea that I'm going to do 6, 7, and 8 miles. If I can get 4 out of the way and not hurt anything, I'm a happy do. You now have a question, fundamentally, energy. Where is the energy coming from that will give us purpose and will give us precedent to have a president, whether it's Harris or Trump, that's actually going to listen to us? Which one of these entities is going to return national politics close enough to us so that they can hear what we're talking about? And I would say Harris is probably the closest one to that. Not because she's half black or Jamaican or whatever. Not because of that. Not because she went to Howard. No, not because she's a stepmom. It's because she's a lawyer. And in the space of understanding law, what I've looked at and understand about Kamala Harris, despite there's a lot of things that she locked up a whole lot of black people and and I'm going to tell people, please, please, please get off the heroin of the internet. Stop putting stuff on the internet. Stop believing. Do some real journalism, for crying out loud. You want to learn about a case? You want to learn about how somebody ruled on a case? You want to learn how somebody voted on a law? Please, please, please do your homework. It's called libraries. It's called archives. We wouldn't even be in this situation right now if people actually spent the time to do some investigation. That Trump may not be as appealing to black folk if you knew the history of Trump and his father before him. And even Kamala Harris. At times, Kamala Harris, she did things that weren't necessarily beneficial to African Americans. And I'm going to say this to African Americans. Who do you know has done everything that's been beneficial to African Americans at a political level? Understand politics. It's politics, it's politics. The scope of it is understanding the art of compromise. So now we have the election between, of course, the prosecutor and the predator. Let me tell you about the predator, brothers and sisters. Everything you need to know about this man is out there. He relies on our cowardice, and he relies on us being lazy to not go out there and look at the information and have these discussions about why we will or will not vote for him. I heard something absolutely despicable about Kamala Harris, and this is coming from Republicans. Republicans who are supposed to be intellectually compact and have this somehow beyond belief otherworldly emotional intelligence when it comes to dealing with people. Kamala Harris is being referred to as a DEI hire. Let me show you what DEI means. And this is what it is to be a black man or a black woman or a Native American or a person of color in America. When they say DEI, what it means is somehow, some way, you didn't have the intellect, you didn't have the ethics, you didn't have the moral composure, you didn't have the directive, you didn't have the discipline to produce excellence from what you saw and what you did. That somehow someone had to give you a crutch for an opportunity. And the only reason you have DER, and this is DEI, and this is why a lot of people are upset with DEI and critical race theory, because it calls into the fact that America, in and of itself, in terms of white supremacy, white excellence, has always needed a crutch and a hand up. It's always needed a head start. It's always needed advantage over others. Otherwise, it doesn't stand up, right? So when you listen to the great blues singers, when you see a white blues singer, it's only because a bunch of black blues singers went through and they treated it as art and they couldn't get paid. And someone said, now we can make money. It's the same thing with comedy, brothers and sisters. It's the same thing with the arts. Unless people can make money out of your art or get you to compromise your art for them and their purposes, then it's not art and it has no value. The scope of having Kamala Harris in this race is that it's energized a lot of people. And for whatever reason, people sat on the sidelines with Joe Biden. They were hesitant. That's your business. I'm not judging you. Please don't judge me. I told you what my issues were back when he was running for president. Not recently, back when he was running. I haven't resolved those feelings. But right now, you have a president. People saying, preach, who are you going to vote for? It's early. I need to have these people make a case that makes sense to me. Kamala Harris is in the driver's seat for this thing. I'm not saying she's going to win. I'm not going to say she's going to lose. But she's in the driver's seat. And the Republicans are nervous. You know, because, and my grandfather told me, my dad told me this, my grandfather reiterated it. But he said this, and just take it in context. He said there's only so many times you can have a room full of white people, yell the word nigga and get riled up. He said there's only so many times. It's only so many times. You can yell it and they'll get excited, but after a certain point in time, it wears off. They're not going to be able to do that with Kamala Harris just because of two things: the way the news cycle works, and two, because there's only 100-some days left. They spent a lot of money bashing Joe for being old, being forgetful. But let me tell you something about Joe Biden. You know, my druthers aside, I never said the man was not intelligent. I never said he wasn't a solid politician. I said there were things I didn't agree with, but he understood the political ins and outs. The 2020 election, he fooled a lot of people. He fooled Donald Trump. He fooled him multiple times. They set multiple traps for Trump, and he couldn't get out of them. I feel like those traps are still out there for Donald Trump right now, those traps, and he does not get out of them because a lot of times when you get people who will blowhards, they don't know how to get out of their way. If they're going in certain directions, the wrong direction, they don't know how to say, maybe I'm going the wrong direction. And the people that they put around them are too afraid to say, hey, Donald, it was a left instead of a right. Kamala Harris is going to benefit for something that no other, I want to say pretty much no other candidate has been able to benefit from. And that's even inclusive of Obama. That the black female vote and a portion of the white female vote are going to have a conversation about, do we want this man? And they're going to look at Trump and go, is he a righteous man? Hear what I'm saying now? Is he a righteous man? In churches around the country, in masjids around the country and synagogues around the country, people are going to have a moral discussion about who is this man that we're about to make the most powerful person in the world. And the answer is going to go, I don't know who he is, but we don't want him. Two thoughts that I think everybody should remember, and I try to remember. Number one, God doesn't make mistakes. It's number one. Number two, whatever's written is always written. Like I say, that the ink is dry, the book is closed. There's a thing flowing out on Instagram with Gerald Ford, former President Gerald Ford, like 1988. He was older. He was an ex-president. And a young lady says to him, and this is dope. The young lady says to him, how do you think we'll get a woman president? And Gerald Ford, without flinching, goes, it's going to happen this way. He says it won't happen a traditional way. He said, what's going to happen is you're going to have a ticket that's a male and a male for president and a female for vice president. And he says, that ticket's going to win. And he goes, the only way she gets to be president is if the male dies. He says, if the male dies. That was the top, I guess that was the top scenario. But they never figured that the male would step aside. And I'm going to say this, agree or disagree, right now, Joe Biden is probably the most powerful person in politics right now because he's not in politics. And so whenever they have the Democratic National Convention, they're going to crown this dude. They're going to give him a coronation. He just saved his legacy. You have everybody and their mama and their ex-wife and baby daddy and baby mama coming off the sideline now. Kamala Harris her campaign took in $126 million reportedly in 3 days. This is more than when Trump got shot. And I was saying this to JT. For Trump to have the lead that he had in the polls over Biden, it required that everything broke his way. Everything broke his way. You're talking about a perfect run, a 10 out of 10, 100 points out of 100 points. And even then, he was still up only 3 to 4 points over Biden. Now you have people who are not looking at his ability to be president. They know that he should not be president. He's not fit for office. And they're more willing now, as Gerald Ford said, he said, and beware that when you have a female president, he said, men, be aware it's going to be really difficult to put men back in that position again. So Kamala Harris, I don't think she watches the ShOUT show. And that's okay, because you do. The history that she has an opportunity to establish here is not about Black women, Asian women. It's about correcting a male-centric, chauvinistic brand of politics that's been out there God knows how long. A type of politics that's not nurturing, type of politics it's exclusive, it's not inclusive, it's exclusive. It doesn't speak to diversity, it doesn't speak to equity, it doesn't speak to inclusion. You know, the only reason you have DEI, and a lot of white people complain that they don't like DEI because it disadvantages white folks. It doesn't disadvantage white folks. It makes you nervous because it reminds you that you've disadvantaged everybody else. That people did things that were in the law, and when you couldn't get your way, you changed the law, you just flat out broke it. This is a referendum on the legal treatise of, do we have a constitution or do we not have a constitution? Do you want a democracy or you do want a dictatorship? Because I tell you this, if Trump gets in, forget him doing another 4 years. He's going to try and find out a way to take us back to the Roosevelt years so he can just stay in office, so he can do 3 terms and 4 terms. You know, the damage in and of itself is insurmountable almost from what he did from 2020. So here's the rule here. Here's the thought. I want everybody to vote. Vote your conscience. You vote for Kamala Harris, cool. You vote for Donald Trump, cool. But listen, put your cards on the table. Stand on your business, as they say. And let's be real about this. Let's not be mealy-mouthed. Let's not be sad and weak and just a languid excuse for American politics. This is it. This is now. Either we have an American political system that's representative of the fact that my vote counts and your vote counts, or we just trash the whole thing. Trash the whole democratic system, because hell, it ain't been working for me my whole damn life. My grandmother's life, my mama's life, my daddy's life, going all the way back to the slave ship. It ain't been working for us. Vote. That's ShOUT Show. I'm Preacher Moss. Go Kamala.